Hey everybody, welcome back to New to Hill Country. I'm here today with Andrea Ruiz and Diana Fernandez of New York Life. And New York Life deals with, they deal with all kinds of different stuff, life insurance, financial planning, college planning, all kinds of cool stuff. They promised me they have almost too much to talk about, so we'll see how we get through everything. But just before we get to talking with them, just brief shout out to the sponsors. As always, SBG Texas, premier martial arts school in the New Braunfels area. We've also got our yoga program going too. The motto really is train smart, train fun. If you're training martial arts and you're constantly injured, you're kind of a failure as a martial artist, because if your goal is to defend yourself and you can't defend yourself from yourself, that's a bit of a problem. And then, our yoga program is very cool and unique. We usually don't talk about that, but, I do a style of yoga that is totally unique. You're not going to find that really anywhere in the United States for sure. I trained with a master in Korea in a tradition that is a non-Indian tradition. He was extremely exclusive, and it sounds like a movie, but I was the only foreigner to ever learn from him. So it is a really cool person that I learned from, Master Ye. So what we do, you really can't find that anywhere else, and it's amazing for improving circulation, and that improvement in circulation for a lot of people results in tremendous health changes that they couldn't have expected to acquire just by doing this kind of rigorous stretching practice. We've also got Element as our other sponsor. Element is just an amazing electrolyte mix. Another one of those things where until you've tried it, you can't anticipate the kind of change that it can make. A lot of people get headaches, or they're just feeling tired and stuff, and they think it's like they didn't sleep, or maybe too much screen time or something. And that's probably true, but a lot of times people just get those electrolytes in, and it's like, it's just like leveling up. You suddenly feel good. You feel fresh. You get your hydration needs met, and water's just unfortunately not quite enough. So anyways, with all that done, ladies, welcome to the show. And I'm just going to start off with, just one at a time. Let me know what brought you into Hill Country. Have you always been a part of Hill Country? Listeners of the show know that I'm not a native at all of this area, so yeah, feel free to just tell me whatever brought you to here, whatever brought you to New Braunfels. So
definitely. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having us.
Sure.
So I myself am not originally a native from the Hill Country. I'm originally from the border. So I'm from about 2.5 hours south of San Antonio. It's a small town called Eagle Pass. Born and raised there, grew up. A lot of people know Eagle Pass for the casino, Lucky Eagle Casino. Probably about the time that my husband and I hit early 20s, down at that time, the border had its thing going on, and we decided that we didn't want to raise a family. We love our family. We love the culture, everything we grew up around, but just felt that we were better suited raising a family in a different city. And so we made the change, and we moved to San Antonio. So I am a native of Helotes, Texas.
Okay.
Kind of hill country, not necessarily the Braunfels area.
Fair enough.
We still got some nice hills out there. But I'm a native of Helotes, Texas, and been in San Antonio probably for the last, we're going on 11 years this summer.
Have you been there so long that you call it San Antone, or is
Essay.
Essay?
Essay.
Nice.
We'll kind of shorten
Trying
it,
to
just
pick up all the local lingo. Got a lot of my guys call it San Antone.
I've heard that, especially a lot of songs reference to it. Particularly, we just kind of go essay, back to essay. And then when we reference home, Eagle Pass, we say EP.
Okay, cool. I can dig that. That's cool. Yeah. Cool. All right, great. And yourself, Diana?
So I'm Diana. I also was raised in a very small border town.
Oh, really?
A little north of Eagle Pass, about 45 minutes away from Andrea.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Del Rio, Texas. Came up here to study at UTSA. Met my husband, had 2 children. This is home now.
Okay, sure, I understand.
We moved out to New Braunfels. Love the small town feel. We still have all the, big city right next door stuff, but it's the small, the quiet, the intimate, knowing my neighbors. Love it.
I love it, yeah. Gosh, I mean, I know maybe you guys have the things you want to talk about, but can we talk border towns for a second? Since you guys kind of broached it, it was uncomfortable. Describe for me, so you guys don't know me very well. So I'm originally from Iowa. Went to school in Missouri. After that, lived in Germany for half a year, then lived in Japan for 2 years, and then I lived in South Korea for 13 and a half years, where I met my wife, we had our kids, all that kind of stuff. Made a couple Koreans, we came back, you know. So we kept them. But you know, I don't know anything about the border town area. I've never been down there at all. So, like, what would I expect exactly? And, like, what... You kind of described it as there's some discomfort down there and everything,
well,
or, you know, like, what makes you want to get out of there? And
so, it's not so much of an issue right now, but I think if you go back and look at kind of news articles and such, you can find there was a period and point in time where there was a lot going on in Mexico. And, you know, being so close to the border and from where we're from, and funny enough, a side story, I'll get to that other one right now. She mentioned Del Rio Eagle Pass are so close to each other. And there's parts of Texas where you can be standing on Texas land and look into Mexico and see people walking, you know, you can see things going on in their downtown. So our downtown mirrored their downtown, and you could see, you know, people across the border, across the river, just kind of going about their day, whether they're in the shops.
People just kind of passing freely between pretty easily.
At Eagle Pass particularly, there's a bridge, the International Bridge, and right under the bridge on our side, our kids would play soccer. And just across the river, you could see on the Mexican side where they were playing football. And so our boys used to play soccer there for a period of time. And at one particular point, you know, things just got so bad that they had to relocate the facilities where the kids were playing soccer and move them to the outskirts of town because things were beginning to kind of spill over.
And it was like cartel violence type stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff's... I know it only through, like, HBO or something, you know, but, like...
I mean, luckily, I never witnessed it firsthand.
Fantastic.
But you had to, you know, you heard the stories, you heard your friends, you know, who were witnesses to it. They happened to be there. There was one particular incident that occurred where I guess there was something going on across the way, shootout happened, and because of the proximity and how close it is, bullets were ricocheting off of our buildings.
Oh, my God.
And so, you know, that's where it just kind of becomes a little bit of a reality check. Now, fortunately, things have calmed down. You know, it's not so much of an issue in today's day. But going back home, and I hadn't been home in a good while, but I recently traveled back home for my father's 75th birthday back in October. And, you know, we just wanted to take a small tour of the town. I hadn't been there in so long. It's like, just cruise around, go to the old spots we used to hang out, spots we used to shop at, things we used to do when we were younger. And so we drive by the downtown area, and it's like all the shops that were once there were once busy on the weekends are like closed down, they're shut down.
That's so sad.
So much has changed, but I mean, for the most part to say, it's just not as, I guess, violent as it used to be. And again, you know, never really saw anything myself, but when you're so close to the border at that, and you live in a small town, you don't have many outlets as far as, you know, things that kids can do. It's really sports, or what else do you have aside from sports? Versus being in a bigger city, you have so much more. You know, it's not just your typical sports, baseball, basketball, football, and soccer back home. Here you have swim, you have, you know, a lot of martial arts, you have a bunch of other things, other outlets that kids can get into. And so my concern was raising a family and to say, okay, if they're not into sports, which, you know, when they're so young, you don't know what their interests are going to be. You can't force them into a certain direction. It was more about, if they're not into sports, then what are they going to be into? And so we just made the choice to say, you know what, I think this would be the perfect time to relocate our family and you know, move somewhere where we can have more opportunities, so to say. And plus, at the same time, my husband was looking to finish up some college, so he wanted to go to UTSA. And so we said, well, perfect. You want to go to UTSA? Let's move right by UTSA. And we wound up settling across from UTSA, and eventually we planted our roots in Helotes and bought a home.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. I think it's great. I think something that not enough people think about sometimes is the world's really big. You know, I'm a bit of a world traveler, liver in that sense, and there's people who have done so much more than me. But at least just one thing I know for a fact is you can always leave. Yeah. You can always just go somewhere else, and the world's a big place, and it'll open its arms to you wherever you go. Like it's people are actually pretty amazing. I mean, there are jerks everywhere, but like it's like, you know, you can go to a place like when I was in Korea for 13 and a half years. For a good portion of that, I really considered myself a lifer. Like, I didn't actually think I was leaving. Like, I had a job as a graduate school professor and stuff. My wife had a great career. And, you know, we figured we were just there for the long haul. And then we decided to pivot. We just wanted something more. We wanted to build a community and be more connected with people. So we did this huge pivot, to move to the States, where the States is like my foreign country in a lot of ways at this point. But just you can always leave, and I think I actually say this to the kids when I'm teaching the program and stuff like that. Like, whenever I have a chance to throw that in there, I'm just like, hey, wait, you know what though? Just so you know, like, you could actually just go somewhere totally else. Like, 'cause I don't think enough kids get that. I mean, I look at like suicides and things like that, and I'm just like, you thought everything was so down, but it's like, you probably could have pivoted about 50 miles, and it just could have made all the difference in the world. You probably just fell in with some people that weren't supportive, or just, and just there were just better people to be found in the world, or just a better scenario to be found. Oh, you're next to the cartel. It's like, go away from that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like the world isn't cartel, like, I mean, maybe cartel's looking everywhere, but like, it's like you can move away from that. I find it interesting just you talking about that, because while I lived in South Korea, it was like people were always worried about me due to proximity to like North Korea. It's like, I'm in way more danger here than I ever was with like North Korea. I know everybody doesn't get that, but like you just going about your day. It doesn't even, North Korea's like, it's not even a blip on the radar. Like, it's a crazy thing when you live there. It's like earthquakes in California or something. Like, you just accept that it's there, and like nothing ever happened. The closest anything ever happened was, it's been a while since North Korea did a real serious provocation, but there was a point where they did an artillery attack on a Korean base. My brother-in-law happened to be stationed there as a doctor or whatever. So there was that was like the most panic I had. I guess the second, there was a submarine that sunk a boat, and I was worried about that because I knew some naval officers in the South Korean Navy and stuff like that. So I had some worries about that. Everyone that I knew turned out to be okay. So it's not that there's nothing that ever happens there, but overall, no one's like walking around scared of North Korea and South Korea. They're just like, whatever. Like, they don't want a war at all. Like, they know, North Korea knows that if they genuinely step over a certain line, which is the DMZ, the U.S. is going to hit back with such overwhelming force. And the leaders of North Korea are not, they're communists. They don't believe in an afterlife. Like, they're not trying to die for a cause. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So they don't have that sort of attitude, which I think people get confused because you have like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and stuff, where you have people that are willing to die for a cause. The North Koreans are not like that. They will do provocations and stuff like that. And largely that's to kind of to bolster internal strength and stuff like that. Like, it's not really about South Korea in that sense. So, but I'm getting way off on
No, I mean, you're right. I mean,
but it's like, the borders around here are probably more dangerous than anything I ever even came close to. I mean, that's like...
Yeah, so Del Rio was a little smaller and a little quieter. We were lucky in that we had a couple of staples in the town. We have Laughlin Air Force Base that trains the pilot.
Okay.
We have the San Felipe Creek. So summertime was always creek time with your entire family. Have a picnic, spend the day there. And then we shared Lake Amistad with Mexico. So we had more of a recreational relationship with them.
Okay, nice.
Than a cartel. We would park the boats and wave to each other and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. Very big lake, though. Very big lake. Nice, too.
Beautiful for bass fishing. Beautiful clear waters.
To head down there.
One of my great-grandparents actually helped build it. So very proud of that little feature in our family.
Cool.
But, I mean... It was typically pretty safe when I was young.
Gotcha.
We would cross over. We would have lunch and dinners over there because the dollar to the peso, huge big difference.
Awesome.
And we were a big family of 6, so it was just really nice to go down there and be able to splurge. My braces were down there. My primary care physician was down in Mexico.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
I like it.
It was a really neat experience.
Cuisine-wise, did you feel like it really dramatically changes when you go across the border, or is it still... I just have no idea.
I wouldn't say... Being on the border, I wouldn't say it's a dramatic change. You have a lot of foods that...
That's what I would figure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are going to be some differences. Things are going to be a little bit more traditional, but because you're so close to the border, a lot of the same recipes kind of translate over.
Gotcha.
I think the difference I noticed was moving from the border to San Antonio.
That's kind of where I was going to go with that.
Yeah, that's where I noticed a significant difference,
If we're talking about the Mexican influence, it's like the Tex-Mex.
This is more Tex-Mex
here,
for me.
sort of,
And
like,
so, my husband laughs because we go to restaurants and I love enchiladas. And so that's one of the first things I always look for on the menu. And it's always a joke because I always have to ask, well, what kind of enchiladas do you serve? Because the type is very, it'll say enchiladas on the menu. But how do you make your enchiladas? That's the key difference for me, because that's going to determine whether I order them or if I don't order them.
So I'm super ignorant of things like that, but we've been experiencing that because the kids got to listening to some song about taquitos raining from the sky or something, so then they wanted to have taquitos, and every place we go to, taquitos are like different. So like, and we always ask like, what is a taquito? Like they want the taquito that's like hard, like what they saw in this music video, the kids song basically. And then we went to like a place, and I think it was run by people who were like probably like more like first generation ish sort of, and they were just sort of like, do you have like taquitos? Because it said taquitos on the sign. Then he was like, listen, taquitos are basically just tacos, okay, buddy? Like, and I was like, oh, okay, like, and the kids were like, I was cool with it because they had like the tongue and the guts, and I love all that stuff.
Everything.
So that's my jam. But yeah, my kids will eat that stuff too, but because they're Koreans. But like, like Koreans get down with all that stuff too. So
well, and it's just Texas. You go west and you call a taco a burrito, and like it's just a completely different different scenario.
And the border's so it's so big. I have friends that are from El Paso, and their cuisine's a little bit different from what our cuisine would be. And again, we go past Del Rio, and it's so funny because we were neighboring cities, but didn't know it until we came onto New York Life and we got to talking. We realized that we were so close, and our towns were actually rivals back in high school.
I was gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
I was gonna have to mention
that was my side story.
Rams.
Yeah, that was gonna be my little side story there. So we we didn't know coming into New York Life that we were neighboring cities, and again going back to it in high school. Eagle Pass now has 2 high schools, but back when I was in high school, it was just the one. And so our big rivalry was against Del Rio. And it's so funny because anytime I meet anybody from Del Rio, they already know. If they're around my generation, they already know that. And I always have to bring it up, like, go Eagles. And they'll always say, go Rams. Or, they know that was a natural thing we had going back in high school.
That's fun.
Yeah.
All those, like, food, those changes and stuff are always very interesting. You see that over in Asia, too, though. Like, it's like, Koreans have Chinese, like they'll have a Chinese restaurant and there's basically Korean Chinese food. So it's not like Chinese food. They have like 3 or 4 dishes that Koreans consider Chinese food. And that's what they eat. Like, and people have talked, Koreans will talk about this endlessly too. Like some of those dishes they've tried to like even find where did that ever even come? Did it even come from anywhere in China sort of? And it's like kind of, it'll be like kind of, just like in the States, like General Tso's chicken.
Yeah.
Like people have like tracked down where did that it didn't really come from China. And then my friend is married to a Chinese woman, and he introduced her to General Tso's chicken. She was like, we need to go back to China and open a General Tso's chicken place because this would kill it over there. So I always find that stuff kind of interesting, just like how things mix and change and everything. I had some friends from California, and they were like, oh, they were all down on the Mexican food here. Oh, in California, it's so different, so better. I was like, Tex-Mex is its thing. You just gotta respect it for what it is. That's my
It really
thing,
is. I think it's a whole cuisine in itself.
Right.
It takes its influences, but I would not classify it as Mexican food.
Right.
It takes a lot of influence from the Mexican culture, but if you actually go down, just a couple hours south of San Antonio, the food is, your Mexican food's gonna be very different over there.
Oh, totally. And there's something awesome about authentic, but authentic is also, what is authentic? Like, even what we call Mexican food right now, 50 years ago, is that what Mexicans were eating? Maybe, maybe not. Like, food changes so rapidly and stuff like that. So, like, even there, like, Korean, like, Chinese food, some people are like, oh, it's like, this isn't really Chinese food. And it's like, but do you enjoy it? Like, like, at the end of the day, it's like, well, it's like, yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's like, well, then does it matter on some level? Like, and, you should try someday Korean Mexican food.
I've seen a lot of fuses. There's a lot of
fusion in the States that's probably pretty good. In Korea, no thank you. But we'll just keep that off there. It's very But yeah, I know out in California they'll do stuff like these like kimchi burrito things and stuff like that, and pretty good there. But some of the stuff in Korea, not so bueno.
It needs a couple of more years.
Needs a couple more years, for sure, yeah. No, it's, and yeah, that's the thing, you'd be surprised, yeah, in 5 years, could be totally different over there. It's already changed so much just while I lived there, but awesome. Let's talk a little bit about New York life, and what do you guys offer, what do you guys do? I know you guys have a lot that you'd like to cover, so I'll let you kind of set it off in the direction that you want to go.
Okay, so why New York Life? New York Life, I can tell you my own personal experiences why I chose New York Life. And I'll be honest to say that, I did start this venture of life insurance through another company. Nothing bad to say about them. Great company. I'm not even going to mention their name because I don't want to speak ill of it. I don't see it that way. Sure. But after going back and doing my own research to it, I just saw how much more New York Life had to offer for its clients, but as well as its employees. And so that's another reason why I diverted and went in the direction of New York Life. So New York Life is a company that is celebrated over 175 years of service.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they've been in the business for a long time. They're a Fortune 100 company. They also have one of the better payouts and dividends. So, they've been backed, paying dividends consecutively for
168 years.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
so
no joke.
No, and aside from that, they take very well care of their employees. So us as employees, we have so many benefits that in turn we can turn around and offer our clients. So we have consistent ongoing training for 3 years. We till this day are still doing classes, learning. There's always so many resources that are out there for us to, go back and work with our clients. And then on top of that too is that when our clients work with us, they're not just solely working with us. There's a team of experts behind us as well.
Great.
So at any point, they're backed by so much knowledge and information, not just through us, but by our resources and our team members.
Cool.
Me personally, I got into this business because of my family. My uncle lost his battle to cancer, and where my aunt and my cousins needed that policy paid out, they didn't receive the funds that they were expecting.
I see.
And that was life-changing for me, especially from a small town. You want to help. You want to do something. You want to change. I think me and Andrea's biggest mission, coming on this podcast today is not just, sharing about what we do, but really promoting all of your listeners to get involved, to learn a little bit more, ask the right questions, know what to look for. Don't settle for, the one thing that you buy online because it's quick, easy, and convenient.
Gotcha.
Really dig into the financial literacy piece of it, really just dive in and learn so that you're not in a bad spot. So that's a little bit of my personal story. And then why New York Life? Just that. They have such a high ethical and moral standard that they do with their clients. It surpasses any other company that I researched when I got into the business. They were not going to do to their clients what I saw done to my family members. And so that to me was huge. It's the only place I would have my children, insured with, or college planning with, and retirement planning with. The resources have been amazing. Like, we have experts in every single field you can think of. We have people that specialize in taxation. So if you're in a higher bracket and you need ways to save money, especially under the new Biden administration, and you've got concerns and they're valid, we've got experts that can help you out. If you need help estate planning, we can help you there too. It's just so broad. Experts in retirement planning. Do you actually know the dollar amount that you need the day that you retire?
Right, that's
all the nitty gritty stuff. We take the work out of it all for you.
That's cool. I would love to explore the financial literacy stuff. If you guys would like to go down that rabbit hole right now. If you have other things that you'd like to go through, I mean, for me, I would love to just, what are the key things I need to know? What are the key terms I need to know? What are the types of terms? For me, the way I like to think of it is when I walk in anywhere in the world, really, I find that people tend to hit me with a buzzword. Do you know what I mean? And they vaguely define it. And it's used to kind of mask a body of knowledge that I'm assumed to not know about, sort of. You know what I mean? Like, so what could you tell me, like, to help me be more financially literate? Like, what are the big terms, like, when you got into this business? What were the big ones where it was like, oh, that's a scary term, but, like, once you understood it better, it was like, that just means this.
Well, and first and foremost, before we actually go into that, I do want to mention and say that, you know, we do have a lot of financial literacy behind us. I think in any industry, there's literacy that's not really fully understood unless you're in it.
Right.
But at the same case in point, you know, we also want to make sure that these are easy conversations to have.
Sure.
So we don't want to come and overwhelm people with big terminology. You know, we're going to help educate along the way. I mean, we definitely want to help make sure that, you know, you have the full understanding, you're comfortable, confident with the decisions that are being made. But we're going to make this conversation as easy as possible for you. We're going to make it comfortable for you to have. You know, I always do go back and I, you know, mention to my clients, one of the main factors is that I'm so passionate about is because the thing is that you don't typically have this conversation in a social setting. You know, it's not like you're gathering with your friends and you're saying, hey, how's your life insurance? How is that working out for you? You know, what plan and policy do you have in place and how is it benefiting your family? There are conversations we don't have. There are conversations that probably need to be had. Now, on a scale, you know, you can't so easily have that conversation. Yes, you can talk about it for, you know, in a social setting to kind of help inform and maybe educate each other a little bit, but what's going to work for you doesn't necessarily work for the person next to you. Everybody has their own objectives, goals, concerns that they want to reach, they want to get to. And so that's where we go back and we do our financial analysis, and we want to make sure that everything that we do is custom and tailored to somebody's own objectives, concerns, goals, needs, wants. You know, everything in that aspect is looked at and dissect, and we create a plan that's custom based off of all that.
Okay.
Yeah. So before we get into the whole literacy, you know, we definitely want to make sure that you know, they're comfortable to have that conversation. So.
That's fantastic.
And just a couple of misconceptions to clear up. Financial advisors, they're not expensive. We can actually save you some money.
I see.
Your first consultations are typically they're free, right? And so if you're already working with someone or you already have a plan in place, that's okay. Still take the time and meet with us. We'll take you through what you're already doing. We might be able to highlight some pitfalls. We might be able to identify some gaps. And then you can turn around with that information and do what's right for you.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just to kind of piggyback on that, to that note as well, you know, a lot of people, another misconception people have is that we have prepackaged plans. You know, we're not going to listen to everything you have to say and then come at you and say, okay, I have package A priced at this, package B priced at this, package C is this price. Everything we design is all going to be designed within a budget that you commit to. We're not going to force a dollar amount down and say, you have to pay, this is what you want, this is what you have to pay to achieve that. I mean, you tell us everything that you need, want, are concerned about, we'll create the plan, we'll show it. Again, it's all complimentary services. The analysis is done complimentary, the recommendations are presented complimentary. At the point that somebody says, okay, yes, I would like to proceed and move forward, then we'll get whatever commitment they'd like to get to. And then at that commitment, you know, we'll devise and create the plan to that. So it's all within, the goal behind it as well is to make sure that the client is, again, not only comfortable with the information they've learned, comfortable with the plan that has been created, but also comfortable with the payment that they're going to commit to it, because we want to make sure it's something that they're going to be able to sustain. We don't want them to commit to something that, you know, at some point in time they're going to be overwhelmed with and they're going to have to let it go. Because the goal is to keep this. The objective of it is for the beneficial factor in it, you know, the outcome they're going to gain from having a life insurance policy, and we don't want to see them in a position where they're going to have to let that go. And so, again, all that is created within a budget that they commit to.
Okay. Well, that sounds awesome. Cool. Let's get into something. You guys got a couple different things that we're talking about. Let's focus in on one of those. Which of the aspects that you deal with in New York life kind of interests you the most? Kind of like, is it like life insurance, college planning? Like, I know that it's going to be a little bit comprehensive, but what do you feel is most important for people to get on top?
Well, so the first way we take our approach is, you know, just like anything, and we like to relate it to the concept of, you know, building a home. What would you say would be the most important piece of the house?
And this is just talking, maybe make sure the foundation is strong, like
right, correct. And so, you know, we look at it and we approach it in that same aspect. So, you know, we have what we like to call our financial house.
Okay.
So again, no plan can really be set in place without a strong foundation, and your foundation is really going to be your life insurance. And so we like to look at it in that approach, and of course we'll go through everything. We'll explain the whole process. We'll explain the concept of the financial house, but the importance of why it all has to begin with life insurance. And so that's kind of the first initial approach we take and dive into when we get into it. And I think Diana here is pulling up our financial house, so we can go over that just a little bit more in detail for you.
Yep. So much to Andrea's point, you start off your house with your foundation, right? That insurance piece of it is crucial. Worst day happens, you don't come home. What's your wife gonna do?
Right.
What's left for the kids? Right. So that piece is huge. But of course, too, we've got to be planning simultaneously, right, for you guys to live a very long, happy life together.
Sure.
You know, watch the kids
rub,
grow.
huh?
Yep. And of course, you've got kiddos, so you know how important emergency savings is.
Sure.
One of those kiddos breaks their arm, you know, just expenses like that you don't really plan for. You know, it's not like 16 and you know you've got a couple of years to plan to buy a car.
Or for, so to say, you know, we're in the time of a pandemic. You know, unfortunately, a lot of people have seen themselves in a financial situation where, you know, that emergency fund has come into play and it has actually helped them. So we try to help gain that knowledge to see these are the benefits of planning for these things in advance. Nobody thought 10 years ago that we would be living in a pandemic today.
Correct. Yeah.
But the people who would plan financially without the expectation of the pandemic happening were probably a little bit more prepared for a situation like this sort.
And one of the other pillars for the financial planning is the retirement piece of it. A lot of your listeners might have a 401k or a TSP or maybe even a Roth IRA, investment vehicles that they're already using, which is wonderful, and you really want to maximize it. So if you guys are listening and your employer matches a percentage, please take advantage of that employer contribution and max that out. Little tidbit there.
Sure.
But if you're using those vehicles, have you thought about what you're going to need to retire with comfortably? Have you thought about the amount of money in tomorrow's dollars, because we have to take into account inflation,
Right.
you know, what you're going to need to sustain the lifestyle that you're used to? You know, when you look at the population today versus 20 years from now. 20 years ago, it was very common for a 20-year-old to be married, have children on the way, have a house, all of that stuff, right? So 30 years from that, when their mortgage is done being paid, they're still 50, they retire at 62, they have a bit of a window. Now with today's population and it going a little longer, you now see people in their 30s and their 40s getting married for the first time, having children. You look at that 30-year mortgage note, now you're 60.
Right.
You're right at, you know, the retirement age. So there are things and plans that we can put in place to make sure that you are going to be taken care of at the time that you need it. You know, if you want to retire early at 59, we'll create a plan for that. If you want to retire at 65, that's okay too. There's so much of it that we'd love to share with you guys. It's just so hard to get very specific because it's based so much on individuals' needs and their own personal goals.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so just to kind of go back to what she mentioned when she spoke of today's dollars, I think that's a very big misconception sometimes, is that when we look at the 401k planning that you set up through your employer, or if you are working with somebody and you set it up, where are we factoring in, again, tomorrow's dollars? So you go back and you look at something as simple as the cost of gas. You know, what was gas? I remember back in the early 2000s, gas was, I believe, under $2. You know, the cost of milk, you know, the gallon. And so we're looking at today, now, gallon of milk, I think, was $1. It was $1 and change back in the early 2000s. Now we're paying, what, $3 and change for a gallon of milk. So
And
what
then
is
if
that
you
going
want a really nice milk?
Right, now that you have a
Fire.
variety of milks, now
Yeah.
it's not just milk and whole milk and 1%.
No.
Now you're looking at all these different types of milks. What's going to be the cost of a gallon of milk in 20, 30 years? What's going to be the cost of gas? Now, we've seen gas go up and down a couple of times over the last couple of decades. You know, we never really know where we're going to be as far as today and tomorrow's dollars go. So the difference is to, you know, we want to make sure that those things get factored in so that when you do reach that age, whether it be that they're stable and we're treading along, or the obvious expectation is going to be that they're going to increase. How much, we don't know. We can't say for certain, but we want to make sure that you're prepared for it.
Sure. sense. Oh, cool. So life insurance is the foundation.
Yes.
And then retirement planning is kind of the next thing.
Well, we got your emergency fund.
Emergency savings,
emergency
retirement
saving.
planning.
Okay. And where do we go from there then? What's our next? Because you guys have a lot of other stuff like college planning.
Yeah,
and things
that's
like
exactly the next one.
Yeah.
Saving up for college if you've got kiddos. There's tons of plans. I want to say off the top of my head, and there's at least 10 different options for savings for college and planning. Again, everything is tailored to somebody's budget. The sooner that you start, example, your kid is 1 to when they get 18, your payments can be stretched out over a longer period of time, and of course the payments are less. If you've waited until they were 10, there's still things that we can do to kind of mitigate the years at risk or just the amount of funding that they receive. But with us specifically, you'll always have a very clear road. And how you're going to get there. We'll give you the vehicles to get there, because let's just talk transportation real quick. What did you use to come to your office today?
The big SBG van.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were going to go to New York, what would you use?
Fly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you were going to go down to an island, say like in the Caribbean, how do you think you'd likely get there?
Fly and boat or something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can agree that your destination determines your vehicle. Does that make sense? And it's no different with college savings and retirement planning. Your destination, your goal, your want, your need for that type is going to be determined with the vehicles that you take to get
That
there.
makes sense.
And
Yeah.
it changes. Another huge piece of what we do is we touch base with our clients minimum once to twice a year. And if you had a big life change, call us. We will make sure that you're still protected. Year like 2020, you lost your job, you can't afford to pay your monthly premium. We'll take a look at your policy and see if there's funds in there that'll cover the cost so that you stay covered and protected.
Okay.
Your family stays whole. There's so many different things that we can do to help you, but it's really important that you maintain your relationship with any financial advisor that you may already have. It's really important that you guys touch base, especially when it comes to your retirement planning. If you get that wage increase, you want to increase that employer contribution and what you're contributing to be able to maximize your own efforts that you're already doing. We're not going to take away from the good things that you're already doing. We're not going to make you change anything up. If you're comfortable, with your advisor, we're still going to take the time to make sure that you know everything that you should know.
No different from, if your child gets sick. A lot of people, or not even necessarily your child, just anybody in general, you come down with something, you go to the doctor. A lot of people like to get a second opinion. We're not here to undo anybody's good work. So we're happily, willingly, we'll take a look at the policy, make sure that what you have falls in line with what you want. If there's any inconsistencies, we'll help bring them to light. We'll show them. It's completely one's choice whether they're going to continue services with their current financial advisor or if they'd like to, have us take a look and proceed forward with us, build that relationship. But the most important piece here, and Diana mentioned this very early on, is that we're trying to bring the knowledge to the table. We want to make sure that people are well informed of their options, not just assuming that, you have to go with what's presented to you. You have to go solely with what's offered to you at work. Another big thing, and now that we brought up an employer, I want to share this piece too. A lot of people, and at the beginning I did get this a lot when I asked somebody about their life insurance. They said, oh, good, I'm covered through work. Well, great, but what happens when you retire from work? Are you going to take that coverage with you? If you look back at the last job that you held, the benefits that you had at that job, did they carry over once you left that job? And the same thing kind of takes place when people retire. There's some companies that will allow you to, extend the benefits, but it's going to become at a cost to you. The employer will no longer cover the full cost for you. So going back to it is what's going to happen when you do retire. Now you're going to have to go out and seek private benefits. If you seek private benefits at the age of retirement, a lot of people tend to neglect the fact or the piece of information that life insurance is obtained with health and age.
Sure.
You're not at your most optimal health and age when you're in the age of retirement. And so the cost is going to be very different for you versus had you, looked into it earlier in the private sector in your mid-20s, mid-30s. And so that's another thing we want to help share. Yes, always take the benefits that are offered to you by your employer. You're paying dollars to the paycheck that you're not even feeling that money come out of your paycheck when you're paying for those benefits. Some employers pay for them entirely. You don't have to pay a single penny towards them. But it is also a good idea to obtain something on the private sector, because whether it's that you lost a job, you retired from your job, whatever the case may be, we want to make sure that you're covered where you're not having a break in your coverage. You want to make sure you're covered at all costs, with or without the job.
Cool. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a great program and just really dialed in. How do people get in touch with you guys? I can Google New York Life, but is there a better, more effective way, or?
The more effective way to contact us would be through our emails or through phone or text.
Okay.
So New York Life has a broad web page. We don't have
a
web page that comes and connects directly to us. So we have our own email addresses through New York Life, and then we have our contact information that we can share.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes, so you'll have you guys, I'll have your emails, your phone numbers, stuff like that, and your name, so that they can individually connect you, especially if someone listen, no, I want Diana, I want Andrea, I don't want to go to some stranger or whatever. I like her. She grew up in Eagle Pass, I did too, that's always a good thing.
Just to make your listeners a little comfortable, we are willing to meet over Zoom.
Yes.
We are willing to, socially distance and meet over some coffee. If afternoons work best for you, we can make that happen too. Our schedule and our availability, really, we work around our clients' needs.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. Anything else you'd like to give a shout out to? Got an uncle starting a new business or anything else in the area, friends you want to support or anything?
Well, I mean, it might as well. My husband works in a small mom and pop dealership, Russell Feltz Motor Company. They do a lot of their sales through online sales. So online advertising, you're not going to see a big flyer. You're not going to see a billboard. Everything is based online, and so. You can Google them. Great reviews, great customer service.
What was the name again?
Russell Feltz Motor Company.
This is
out in San Antonio, Texas.
But it's an online advertisement company.
Online advertising,
But motor company is what throws me off there. Why motor company?
I guess it's just the name he chose. He's been in service for I want to say since the mid '80s. I don't want to quote the wrong age. But he's actually from Del Rio, originally from Del Rio too. But yeah, so he's been in San Antonio for a long time. Again, they're a small mom and pop shop, so there's a lot more ease in how the service is done. You're not in a big franchise business out there, and you're not waiting hours and hours there. And so they're also servicing their clients as well, making sure that they're following COVID guidelines. If there's a client particularly who's concerned about this whole COVID and isn't so much comfortable as going to the store and going up there and viewing the car, they'll make accommodations as necessary to make sure that they're able to see all aspects of the vehicle. If they're happy with it, they'll do everything online, all the paperwork. So I think that's probably my biggest one that I can give a shout out to, just to support my husband and his. Good to know. My husband and his job. His name's Andrea Ruiz. If anybody's ever interested, again, he's the finance director there, but he's also hands-on in the sales as well, and he's actually the one who does their online advertising. So you like those pictures, give him a call.
Cool. And Diana, anything you wanna plug extra? Or?
Can I just say that our little farmers markets in our area are phenomenal.
Oh, cool. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yep. So if you guys have a chance, please support the New Braunfels area's markets. They've got so many amazing vendors in the area. I love getting out there. It's always nice. This weekend, I know it's supposed to be a little bit rainy, but they've always got something great going on, and I just love to shop and support local.
Any vendors in particular that you want to plug?
I've got a list. Is it okay if I just list them off?
Tell me the ones you like.
Lone Star Bath and Treats.
We just had Lone Star Bath and Treats on.
Really?
On the podcast. It's probably going to be the one that airs right before yours.
Oh, awesome.
So Mandy Jakubowski was on, yeah.
Emerald Whisk, Cajun Cookery, Cristelli's Culinary Corner, Green Witch Apothecary, Patagonia Wild Tea Company, Cassandra's Cocoa Bombs, Charlie B Company, Beba Salsa, Bubba's Smoked Meats, Cafe Columbia Dreams Company, Texas Black Gold Garlic, Gourmet Texas pasta. Yeah, there's just a ton.
What is the time when that's open? The one that you go to?
Usually 9 to 1, and it's in the Krause's Cafe parking lot.
Is that Saturday or Sunday?
It's Saturday.
It's like, I'm usually here. Maybe I can send someone over there. But I feel like that's probably like a whole bunch of people we should just bring on the podcast right there, just listening to it. We just had Mandy on. It was great. That's what you may not have noticed the products out in the lobby, but yeah, her stuff was really cool. She was talking about that. But yeah, I bet there'd be some interesting conversations to be had there. Maybe just bring a handful of them on at one time, a whole gang and everything. So, well, ladies, thank you for coming on the podcast. It was great. I feel like I learned a lot about, what I need to do to think about the future, and I hope our listeners are keyed in on that. If you want to get in touch with these ladies, just look in the show notes, and I should have the emails, the phone numbers, every kind of easy way to get in contact with them. Take her easy.